One thing that is completely unavoidable when it comes to the NBA playoffs, the best time of the year for basketball fans, one thing that is completely unavoidable, something you can just never get away from, are the hot takes. I've seen a ton of hot takes. I've been involved in a lot of debates involving some ridiculous hot takes. The latest hot take that I just really don't like, and it is a complete over exaggeration and a complete hyperbole, is this idea and notion that Nico Harrison made the right move by trading away Luka. Now, where did this take an idea come from? And again, it's not sweeping the internet, but I've seen enough people talk about it and take this side for it to be a problem in my eyes. So obviously, Luka has not gotten off to an amazing start in this postseason. It hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been amazing, right? And there seem to be more criticisms about Luka at this point, especially with his defense or whatever the case may be, than there are praises, right? So that's where we are right now with Luka. This is yet another moment where Luka proves to us that he is not a great defensive player. First thing that people immediately think about is the reason behind Nico Harrison saying that he wanted to trade away Luka Doncic because of his lack of defensive effort. With all of that, comes this new idea that Nico Harrison made the right move. Again, I'm not saying that this is a take that is completely sweeping the internet. This isn't a thing that is universally accepted as basketball truth, but I've seen enough people say it for it to be an issue, especially Kendrick Perkins. I think Kendrick Perkins said it just yesterday, either on like NBA Countdown or whatever the case may be. I've seen it one too many times, and I don't want people walking away with this idea that just because Luka Doncic isn't playing at the level that we've wanted him to play at so far this postseason, I don't want people walking away thinking that Nico Harrison somehow made the right move. There is still to this day no justification behind you giving up your franchise player, especially when you look at what they have right now, right? Anthony Davis is not a healthy player, and Kyrie Irving obviously was out for the remainder of the season. Now, did they foresee that? No, nobody foresaw a massive ACL injury for Kyrie Irving, especially given the fact that he's generally been healthy over the last couple of seasons with some exceptions here and there. But you gave away your franchise player, and what you have now are two all-star level players, superstar level players, right? AD and Kyrie are both amazing guys, both championship winners, and both played at a high level on those championship winning teams, but they're injured, right? They're injury prone, right? So there's no justification behind the trade, giving away your franchise player and having a situation where you have two still amazing guys, but they're both injury prone. And you knew this, right? In the back of Nico Harrison's head, he knew injuries was going to be something they had to worry about, especially with Anthony Davis. He knew that possibly that could be a concern, a point of concern with Kyrie Irving. So there is no world where there's a justification for that trade, moving away from your franchise guy and Luka, a player that you're just simply not going to get in a very long time again. Like when that Luka trade happened, there were a lot of critiques of Luka. So when Nico Harrison said that he had issues with Luka's defense, the number one conversation was about, oh, wow, Luka Doncic doesn't play defense. Oh, wow, Luka Doncic does have some issues with staying in shape, although I'm not really seeing that particular argument. I didn't look at Luka Doncic's play this season. You guys can let me know if I'm wrong. I didn't look at his play and production this season and think that his weight and his shape and all of that stuff was too much of an issue. But that was so much of the conversation. Yes, people were critiquing Nico Harrison about the move, but there was enough attention on Luka Doncic's weight and also the lack of defensive effort. Hell, Kendrick had a lyric talking about Luka's weight, right? Enough people were talking about Luka's weight, and I didn't really like the way that people were painting these narratives about Luka, right? There were more critiques of Luka Doncic and not enough recognition about how rare and how great of a player he truly is. The biggest thing with the Mavericks moving away Luka is the fact that you are simply not going to get another guy like him in a very long time. There aren't going to be Luka Doncic's in every single draft class, right? As great as Cooper Flagg is, and as great as guys like Darren Peterson and AJ DeBonsa are, you're not going to get a Luka Doncic in a very long time. Luka was a takeover player in his rookie year. Luka had already established himself as an arguable top 10 guy by his second season. I said arguable. I'm not saying it was fact that Luka was top 10 by year two, but it was a great argument to say that, right? Like, you're not going to get another Luka. So even if your argument is that Dallas would try to rebuild sometime down the road, and this is just a setup for them moving into another direction, you're going to rebuild, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with rebuilding, but you're going to try to go out and get a franchise guy, and you're not going to get a franchise guy on the level of a Luka Doncic. So you gave away your franchise guy who was still young. Luka's either like 25 or 26. He's still very young, still probably not even in his prime yet right now. You're going to give him up, get back some temporary assets like Anthony Davis, who I don't think is going to be a part of their long-term plans, and possibly rebuild some time down the road to try and get another franchise level guy. That does not make sense. Right? You were already rebuilding. You already had something and somebody to build around, a generational type talent, just to give him away because of a lack of defensive effort or whatever the case may be, and go back in the rebuild direction possibly sometime down the road. I'm not saying that's where Dallas is going at, right, as far as the rebuild goes, but it does seem like they may be gearing up for that sometime down the road, especially given the uncertainty around a Kyrie Irving and an Anthony Davis at this point in their careers. Just doesn't really add up. So I know Luka has improvements to make, right? And I know he hasn't been the version that we wanted to see from him so far this postseason, even though he was pretty good for the most part in that last game. Can't say the same about game 3, but I know we have our critiques of Luka, and we know that Luka is an imperfect player, but I think we've gone a little bit too far with our Luka criticisms. Yes, there are some things that he needs to get better at, especially from an effort standpoint, but not enough for me to think that it is justified for somebody to give up on a franchise player who you are simply not going to get back in a long time. Again, I'm going to say this one more time. You are not going to get another Luka Doncic in a very, very long time. This guy's been playing pro basketball since he was like, 15 or 16 years old, had a ridiculous experience coming in, very, very seasoned at a young age. You're not going to get a guy like him in a long time. There is no justification. I don't care how subpar he's been so far this postseason. He is still an elite level player, still an arguable top 5 guy, still is one of those dudes where you look at him and you're like, I want to build my franchise around him, right? Like there are a set of players right now that as fans, we have these conversations all the time where we're like, I would love to build my franchise around these types of players, right? So like Giannis, Nikola Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe. Luka's right in that conversation as one of the most ideal players to build a squad around. So I don't care what he's done so far this postseason. I don't care what the flaws are. It simply will never make sense for Dallas to move away from their best player out of the blue, their franchise guy out of the blue. It just will never make sense, especially when you look at the outcome of their season. So again, this is the premier time for hot takes. I get it. And a lot of the hot takes are in reaction to the things that we see. So Luka's not been playing at the level we wanted him to. All that is fine. All that can be true. But this notion and this really weird indication that this automatically justifies the trade that Nico Harrison had by giving away Luka, none of that makes any sense. None of that adds up. That move will never make sense. We'll go back to it years down the road in NBA history, look back at it 50 years from now, and it will just never make sense. Even if they win a championship 10 years later from now, right? And they do end up having a championship within the next decade. Even if that's the case, the Luka trade would still look ridiculous. It still didn't make sense. There is no way that I would look at any situation here and make the statement that Nico Harrison somehow made the right move.